to start with acknowledging where we are here. So I'll play a Ghana welcome, and then I'll say it in English as well.
Ngadlo tampandi yala ka ngadlo kana yatanga in barendi. Ngadlo tampandi panakuto la yatanga. Kana mena yaiti yata matini wa matandanyo ko. Panako yalcha, panako tapa porna. Kana mena itu yalcha porna. Yata kuma por matandi, por wariapendi, por tanka matalaendi. Kuma tani yaiti mena ngadlo tampandi yanga yalaka. Panako yata kumatana yata kandi patuara kuma warnanku.
Yeah, so we acknowledge this land that we meet on today, the traditional land of the Ghana people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We acknowledge the Ghana people as the custodian of the Adelaide regions, and that their cultural heritage, beliefs, and is still as important to the living Ghana people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting, attending from far, Queensland and everywhere else in Australia and South Australia. So thank you very much. I welcome you all to today's launch. I'm excited to reach this far. So it's quite an honor that I'm hosting this meeting with the other members that we are here. We've come a long way. So please, this is a great time that we are having today. So straight away, I would like to invite Agnes. Agnes, she's a mother of 4 children, the youngest being born with sickle cell in the late 2000. Her dedication to sickle cell advocacy started over 10 years ago. And sorry, my lights, I don't know what's happening. Yeah, so our dedication towards sickle cell started 10 years ago. The youngest daughter was born with sickle cell anemia. A data analysis by a professional. Agnes became a registered nurse to understand sickle cell disease and what her daughter was going through. She studied for a master's degree in nursing from the University of Sydney in New South Wales. In 2014, 6 years after the diagnosis of their daughter, Agnes and her husband, Preston, started a Facebook page to raise awareness about this chronic condition. In 2018, with their friend Natalie on board, they founded the Australian Sickle Cell Incorporated, Inc. The organization was designed to support people offered by sickle cell in Australia. They also continue to raise awareness in different stakeholders as sickle cell disease is considered a rare disease in Australia. They are always increasing the awareness in the at-risk communities, who most of them will live with the sickle cell gene without knowing within 2 years of getting formally registered. Today, most people and the policymakers have engaged with the organization and continue to spread the word and shine the light on sickle cell disease in Australia. Please join me to welcome Agnes as she speaks to us. Agnes. You are mute.
I was mute. Thank you very much. It's such an honor to join you this afternoon. And firstly, before I go ahead, I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we work, even if we're doing this virtually. I pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and emerging. Honorable Peter Khalil, and in absentia, Honorable Maria Vambakina. I hope she's joining us later. Chairperson, Dr. Margaret Evans Kalie, team SA, ASCA, all teams who have joined us from other chapters and specifically here in Victoria, invited guest, Carly Holmes is joining us as well, and everybody who's joined us. Thank you so much for coming on board. So for me, I think I'll give you like an overview, and I'll do this quickly just by sharing my screen of a small presentation that I actually prepared. So firstly, I just want to tell you about, what makes me so inspired to do what we do. We have people here in Australia who are part of our team. Some of them are over 60, over 50, and they were born here in Australia. And to see somebody write this message, it just makes us proud to see where we've come from. So I've got somebody here who says he was happy for the first time, almost 60 years, he belonged to an association that looked up for the needs of patients with sickle cell. And then for the first time ever, we asked the sitting federal member of, sitting Minister of Health, the federal Minister of Health, to give a word of encouragement to people affected by sickle cell disease. And one of the members said this: for the first time since we migrated here for a greater chance of life, we're finally getting some sort of recognition. And this is somebody who's been living with sickle cell disease over 50 years. So for us to see this, it makes me feel even more inspired and honored that we are trying to do this to make a difference in people's lives who are affected by sickle cell. So as Kennedy has said, we are a not-for-profit organization registered in 2018, predominantly just supporting people. That's the way the code started, supporting people affected by sickle cell disease. Right now, as we speak, we have over 120 signed up members. We have over 262 newsletter recipients and over 9,000 followers across all social media platforms. We are headed by our board, and I'm so glad and happy that our chairperson, Dr. Margaret Evans-Kalia, is part of the group today. But we've got board members and chapters all registered in all states, except ACT and Northern Territories, where we have representatives as well. And as you can see, that there's been a need to spread out, not just in Victoria, because of the numbers of people that we have right now in Australia. And experts are saying we have about 1,000 people. And the main states are here, obviously, in Victoria, New South Wales, Western Australia, Queensland, and South Australia is also coming up with a number of people that are affected. What we do, we are governed by our mission, which is simply to look out for the better services for people affected by sickle cell disease, and we follow our values that we are governed: excellence, perseverance, integrity, and caring. And mostly our objectives at this point, we're a very young organization, and I'm glad that we're spreading out, but mostly we're just raising awareness because this condition is considered a rare disease in Australia. We do that by providing education, which we've done very well during this pandemic using social media, supporting people affected by sickle cell. We started the first ever support group in Australia for people affected by sickle cell disease. And we want more research because, as you hear, right now, the only cure is not universal for all. It's a bone marrow transplant, which comes with a lot of restrictions. But also in terms of medications, that's something that we're fighting for. Here in Australia, we only have one hydroxyurea and one dose, and there's no other alternative. So for us as an organization is to see that we have access to other medications that are coming up abroad, that some of them, for the first, from 1998 to 2017, there's only one drug, hydroxyurea, that was being used for the rest of the world. From 2017, we had a drug called Indera, but it hasn't even reached Australia yet. And then last year, we had 2 other drugs that came on the market. We don't even know, we don't even want to know like how the process will be for us to get access of those drugs. So that's what we are doing this, to ensure that other people have got the alternatives of medications and alternatives of therapies and curative options one day in terms of more scientific research. So, so why ASCA? So we looked at, at the understanding that, the experts are saying for the past 15 years, actually, a lot of people are coming up with, being diagnosed, or they're coming to Australia with sickle cell disease. And we want to ensure that the healthcare system is aware of this condition. And some of the people that we are us amongst our members, they said, you know, they've seen that in the hospitals when they go, there's no regard to quick triage upon arrival in ED because the hospital system doesn't understand this system. Ineffective sickle cell crisis management in hospital, ineffective pain management. You know, others are saying they would like to see more treatment options, as I've said, they would like to have more treatment options from the rest of the world, and they want to see more comprehensive reviews with specialists or consultants that are looking after these people that have got this condition, which is considered rare disease in Australia. So, so for us as a future direction, one of the things that we've wanted is to spread out, not just Victoria, and that's why we are so glad that we've got South Australia on board today, because that's one of the things that we want to continue doing. But as a group with South Australia and other states, we want to reach out to the policymakers like Honorable Peter Khalil on the panel today, that there's still a lot of things that has to be done in terms of newborn screening, for example. We want to see that babies are diagnosed on time and they don't present late to the hospital. We are we've designed a course for sickle cell disease and would like to see that in all public hospitals and private hospitals across the country. We want sickle cell disease to be recognized as a chronic disease by different Department of Health, different states. And also we want to spread out to increase the awareness. And that's why we are having the first ever conference for sickle cell disease next year, right there in Adelaide. And we're engaging with schools and universities and other hospitals also to ensure that this condition is actually recognized. And quickly, while we are doing this, we did an analysis to see that the numbers of people that are actually migrating to Australia from the parts that sickle cell is prevalent, the numbers are growing. And that's why we want to ensure that people know that if you come from this parts of the world, you get tested for you to know that you are at risk of having this condition. And we can only do that if we have organizations like this and many more to ensure that this is happening in other parts of the country as well. So finally, I just want to thank you. This has been such an honor that, you know, we have actually finally spreading out, and I just want to thank you everybody who's on the panel today, and we look forward to working with South Australian team. We are here to help, so thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was a very well elaborated speech, welcoming speech to this launch. Well spoken. Yeah, at this point, give me the honor to introduce the team from South Australia that has made the whole this event from the time that we started. It started like a phone call, making a phone call to Agnes. Then thereafter, oh, can you talk to another person there? I know someone. Then we started talking until we made a team. From there, making a team. Then we are now a family, a big family. So the one speaking, I'm the president for South Australia, Sickle Cell Advocacy. Very little about me. I come from Zambia. In Zambia, I'm a lecturer at Zambia Institute of Special Education. Currently in Australia, I'm studying at Flinders University. I'm doing Masters of Special Education. I'm also a recipient of the prestigious Australian awardee, which Honorable supports very much to make sure that Africa also gets the education. So I'm an awardee. I'm that scholar. Yeah. Normally, I would say I like to work with people, and it's one of the things that calls me a lot. Yeah, me, it's not that I've got anyone who in my family has got sickle cell, but it's because of my studies and my interaction with people with the sickle cell that has given me the passion to attach myself very much with the sickle cell. So I'm looking forward to do more of my studies in that line so that I would see how best I can work and advocate with people with those with the sickle cell. Yeah, Ruth, who's supposed to be the next with me, she's on apology. She's my vice president for the organization. Ruth is an organization development professional with very much interest and influence in policy changes. She's one person, who believes in advocating for people who are who living with sickle cell. She's one of the founding members of ASCA South Australia, and she's the current vice president. I'll move to the next. Mwewa.
So yeah, we're having a bit of technical difficulties. Our internet's dropped, so my husband will speak, but in the meanwhile, whilst he's trying to get on, if he's able to get on now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can unmute, Davis. All right, I'll go whilst he's trying to unmute himself. My name is Moa Chisenga. I am the secretary for the South Australian chapter here of ASCA. I'm a mother. I'm a mother of 3. I have 2 daughters and a son, and 2 of my daughters have sickle cell disease. I met Agnes through our online chat groups, and that's how we got to meet, and I was then asked to help set up the South Australian chapter here in South Australia. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself, but I'll talk a little bit more later on.
Yeah, I can have Davis now. Is he there now?
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I've been having technical problems here. I seem to have settled down a bit now. Thank you for allowing me to speak at this launch. My name's Davis Chisenga. I'm the treasurer for the ASCA South Australia. I'm definitely passionate about this particular role I'm playing. At the same time, because I'm linked to 2 kids that have got sickle cell anemia, it's definitely, for me, something that is close to heart. Particularly interested in really reaching out to increase our financing base. So that's a role that I'm really keen to basically play as far as this particular organization is concerned. As to what I may want to see, I think it's probably what Agnes has really spoken about in great detail. How much can we manage to educate the Australian government and Australian environment about this rare disease that's commonplace in Australia at the moment, and how best we could utilize the people that are close to managing these kids as far as really enabling as many people as possible to know about this disease, and at the same time, what can be done to try and manage it and probably prevent it from occurring. That's about me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can I have Mulenga? Is Mulenga on?
Probably isn't. We might move to Ade.
Okay, Ade. Is Ade on as well?
He seemed to have dropped out, Kennedy.
I'm not.
He's not on.
Okay, so then we can move on. We can introduce them when they come on. Yeah, I will invite Mwewa to speak at this point, but who is Mwewa? Mwewa Chisenga is a mother of 2 daughters living with sickle cell. Mwewa is a chartered accountant profession and a native of Zambia. She obtained a master's in business administration from Deakin University in 2014 and has worked in various capacities and organizations in Zambia, Botswana, Australia. Her family migrated to Australia in October 2005, and soon after, her second daughter was born in Orange, New South Wales. Mwewa is one of the founding members of ASCA South Australia and is currently serving as our secretary. Please welcome Mwewa to give us our objectives of the association and other speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kennedy. I hope you can all hear me. I might try and share my screen. I just have a little slide, if I may. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah, it's clear. You can see it.
All right, thank you very much, yes, for your time. I might just start, yes, by just acknowledging our special guests that we have in our midst. Firstly, I want to acknowledge that the land that we meet on is the traditional land of the Ghana people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Ghana people as the custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the living Ghana people today. I'll be remiss if I didn't take time to acknowledge our special guests. We have the Honorable Peter Khalil MP, Federal Member for Willis. We also, I believe, will be having Honorable Maria Vamvakinau, Federal Member for Cowell, who will be joining us later on, I believe. We also have Dr. Monica Powell, the pediatric hematologist oncologist at the Women's and Children's Hospital here in Adelaide. We're also honored to have Dr. Margaret Galea AM, the ASCA board chairperson, present here as well. And a warm welcome to our new ambassador, Callie Holmes. We also want to acknowledge a few of our board members, I guess, will be coming on later on in the stage. A few representatives that we were going to have from ASA Pathology, medical fraternity, representatives from various community organizations, friends and family across Australia. To you all, I just want to say thank you, and thank you for taking out the time on a Saturday afternoon when you could be doing other things. And so we just want to thank you for taking the time to coming out to support us as we launch. I guess to answer the question of Agnes's question of why ASCA, what's the whole purpose of us meeting to be able to talk about that. Our main aim, I guess, in South Australia of setting up ASCA is really one thing, and that is to raise awareness on sickle cell disease in South Australia. We do know that in our interactions, and as a mother speaking, I'll be speaking with several hats here as a professional woman. I'll be speaking as a mother. I'll be speaking also as a member of the public. The awareness and the profile of sickle cell is very, very, very low. Not many people know about it. We hear more of the thalassemias and other blood disorders, but not so much in sickle cell. So that really predominantly is our role, is really to raise the profile and raise awareness of sickle cell anemia. And how do we intend to do that, I guess, would be the question. Well, we want to be encouraging discussions to remove the stigma that's associated with sickle cell disease. We know in our communities and in our circles, sometimes we're not very forthright about sharing the conditions that we have, where we find our situation. So we really want to encourage those discussions. And hence, that's why we are putting ourselves up and putting a face to it to say, hey, I have the sickle cell trait and I have children that have it. And that's one of the ways in which we're going to be removing the stigma attached to it. We also want to look at providing education to communities and relevant stakeholders to raise awareness of sickle cell again. So those opportunities, again, to provide education, be it in our workplaces. We find situations where persons living with sickle cell, face all sorts of challenges in their day-to-day lives. And so it's all part of that to try and help the environments in which that they're working, to help the people understand that there's absolutely nothing that they cannot do. They may not be able to do a few things here and there, but that's just the way it is, as you would expect with other people. So it's, again, providing that education in our communities and in our various workspaces that we find ourselves. We're also looking at really encouraging the advocating of prenatal screening in South Australia, and that's, again, a national-wide program to try and encourage parents to be, as we are in the Sickle Cell Month, we are looking, and one of our promotions is to know your sickle cell status. So we're encouraging parents and persons to go to their doctor, ask for the test, to be able to know their status, and that will help them make some informed decisions going forward in terms of their family and their life. So we are absolutely going to be advocating for that particular space to happen. We're also, as our treasurer had spoken about, looking at fundraising activities to contribute towards sickle cell research. We know a lot of dollars go towards other conditions in Australia, and one of them predominantly is cancers. And so we are, again, because the profile is not huge in Australia, we are wanting to be in that space where we can start to advocate and start to fundraise some money towards some sickle cell research do some partnerships with our local universities here at the University of Adelaide and Flinders University, where we can get to find a way and sponsor some of that research where we can start making some headways in terms of the medications, in terms of treatments and what else is available in that particular space. To that effect, we are talking about some planned activities that we're wanting to do there, and I've alluded a little bit about that. We're looking at some patient support activities, and one of that is hosting information nights. I was speaking rather to one of our hematologists, and they had mentioned that it would be a really good idea to bring together our doctors, our patients and carers and patients, and have an information session night. So that's something that we're looking to roll out in the coming months. We're also planning and working towards putting out some information booklets for our children. We have children who are going into different schools, and so that's information we feel will be very relevant to the teachers, also relevant into the whole student community body as to, you know, my friend is not feeling too well, or they're not able to do this. How can I help? How can I be a better friend? So it's that particular information. We're also wanting, again, a bigger focus is empowering our caregivers and our parents to be able to know how to manage their stress levels, because we know some days are quite challenging having a child with sickle cell, the number of hospital visits and all of those things that you got to do. So we are just looking at ways in which we can help and empower each other in that particular space. And every now and again, we want to also just have a quiet time and hang up our boots and have a dinner together and just encourage and celebrate each other. So looking at having a dinner with our members just to be able to share that. And a critical part of that work also, as you would realize, of persons living with sickle cell is part of the treatments that Agnes had talked about, was having blood exchanges and blood transfusions. So looking at partnering and promoting with the Red Cross when they are able to do some of their work that they do, which is an invaluable part of our work, but also partnering and helping work with them in our communities to drive up the numbers of people who are able to donate blood, particularly of the African descent. In terms of our awareness space, we're looking at participating in various fora where we can talk about that, and also forming some strategic linkages within our health partners. I am looking at my clock and it's ticking away very fast. So I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to rush through so we can still end on time. I'll just share a little bit about my story, I guess, to just wrap up what we're trying to talk about here. As I mentioned before, I'm a mother of two daughters who have sickle cell disease. One, my eldest, was diagnosed with sickle cell at the age of 5 months, following a routine visit to the pediatrician. And that was back when we were in Botswana at the time. So having to move that and learning through the prophylaxis of being on antibiotics and taking the folic acid. And that was the treatment plan at the time. Having moved to Australia when we did with my family and fell pregnant with my second daughter, I had mentioned to the doctor to say my oldest daughter has sickle cell, and he said, all right, when your child is 2 months old, we'll go and have the test. And so we did. And that was done at the Westmead Children's Hospital in Sydney. And that began a journey. And I kid you not, I used to move around when the doctor met with us and gave us results, very much medical speak, of all these results and what it meant. And I had to move around with that paper every time I went to a doctor's visit, every time I went to take my daughters. And I can't even give you the number of times we've ended up at the emergency department at the various places where we had lived and shared on that. So I had to present that paper to show the doctors, this is what my daughters have, and hopefully that would help them and lead them into a kind of narrow down the search of what would be wrong with them. So that has been a journey, and we've had various challenges along the way, but with the support of our faith, with the support of the community, with the support again of what we're meeting today and what we're trying to do, that has made the journey that much a little bit easier. But it's also about very much not about being the victim or looking for empathy, but more about empowering. What information can I arm myself as a parent to be able to advocate based for my child? What types of things should I be able to be aware of in terms of their diet, in terms of being aware of all the sorts of things that are having to do? And that's on top of you being a mother and a wife and everything else, a professional, and all of those things that you got to do. So I guess in a nutshell, all we're trying to do at the end of the day is really one, empower each other and give us information, work with our health partners. And we have awesome doctors around us who are working tirelessly to make our lives better and also help our children in that particular regard. So I just wanted to say thank you for your time, and I really, really appreciate you taking time off on your Saturday to come and spend some time with us. But really, that's what our journey is really all about. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Agnes, for that wonderful sharing. Very uplifting. Yeah, I know we are 10 minutes behind the time, but that should not stop us to go ahead. At this point in time, I'm privileged and honored to invite our Honorable to give his speech. So Honorable Peter Kali, MP, is our South Australian Sickle Cell Advocacy official ambassador. He was elected. He was first elected in 2016, and he elected for second term in May 2019 election. Peter is the son of migrant parents and grew up in an inner city housing commission in Melbourne. Peter's parents instilled in him the importance of giving something back to the community and the country that had given his family so many opportunities. He was the beneficiary of access education of the visionary policies of Labour government, and studied law and arts at Melbourne University before later attending a Masters of International Laws from ANU. Prior to his election, Peter was a Victorian Multicultural Commission promoting our cultural diversity, and he has worked as an executive director of corporate affairs, strategy and communications at SBS. Peter has worked as a foreign policy and national security advisor at the federal government. He has also a non-resident adjunct associate professor at the Center of International Security Studies at Sydney University. Peter lives with his wife and 2 children in Pasco Valley, practices judo, plays tennis, and in spare time, and is one of the Hollywood supporter. Please join me to welcome Peter as he gives us his speech. Honorable Peter Kali, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Kennedy. I didn't expect such a lovely introduction. There's not much spare time anyway at the moment, and I want to just wish everyone a good afternoon and start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to the elders past and present, and acknowledge, of course, Dr. Maggie Evans-Galea, the chair of Australian Sickle Cell Advocacy, and also acknowledgement to Agnes as well, the executive director, who's done such a power of work and got me involved in with you as a community. And I want to do a special acknowledgement, a special congratulations to you, Kennedy, as the new SA president, South Australian president, and Wewa Chisenga and Ruth Chilesha. I know Ruth's not on the call, and also Davis Chisenga. All of you I know are going to do a wonderful job in this coming period of time. As you said, I'm a member of Parliament, a federal member of Parliament. I'm also really honoured to be the ambassador of the Australian Sickle Cell Advocacy Association. So really thank you all for inviting me today. I also am very, very excited that we are celebrating or acknowledging the South Australia joining as a chapter, which is fantastic. So you kind of mentioned some of this about my parents. My parents migrated from Egypt as migrants to this country back in 1970. And they've always sort of instilled in me this idea to give something back to the community. And I guess that's why I got involved in a lot of public service. But I've been very active in my advocacy, particularly for the African Australian community. I'm one of the first African Australians, as an Egyptian Australian, to be elected to the federal parliament. and it's a real honor, and you know, being an advocate for the community is particularly important for the cultural diversity, and celebrating and acknowledging and embracing that multicultural diversity that we have in this country, which is, I think, is a great strength of Australia. And we know, all of us here obviously know, that the impacts of SCD, this invisible disease, is prevalent obviously in people of African, Mediterranean, some Asian peoples as well, including people from North African descent like me, are affected. In fact, in some of the studies of this, some of you might have read this in the New Scientist journal, some scientists had made the assessment that King Tutankhamun, the boy pharaoh, may have actually succumbed to SCD. He may have had malaria, high levels of immunity to malaria, because it was quite prevalent in ancient Egypt, and SCD was there, and that could have been the reason that he succumbed at 19 years old. So there is a real history there of the disease, and even scientists now are making these assessments of mummies that are 3,000 years old. The more we know about the issue, of course, the more power we have to make changes in the modern day, and that's really where this intersection between your groups and your advocacy and the political class, political leaders such as myself, is so important, because it's about creating policies and laws, as well as changing the understanding and the public knowledge around the disease in the general public. All of those elements are quite important. And most people, as we would know, wouldn't even know about sickle cell disease if they were asked what it is, because it's quite rare and uncommon in many regions here in Australia, obviously, where awareness is so limited. And we even know that there's, in terms of statistics, unless there's more recent ones, not very current or conclusive data in Australia, and that needs to improve. And I think Agnes mentioned some of the things that need to occur in this space. There are no national guidelines, for example. These are things that need to be addressed. And it's also true to say that as Australia becomes more ethnically diverse, with more migrants coming from these parts of the world, that the prevalence of the disease may only increase. So you know all the facts about the sickle cell disease and what happens in the body with the abnormal shaped red blood cells, and how they starve the body of oxygen and so on. You're all aware of these issues because you're looking at this all the time, and it's part of your challenges as with family members as well. But most people don't understand this. Most people in the public don't. So a big part of that advocacy is education and knowledge around the disease. That's the big first part. That's the foundational step in the work that needs to be done. And it really is. Then from there, we can tell the stories of people who are impacted, so that the political leaders, the decision makers, the policy makers can really understand both the facts around the disease, but also the impacts it has on people. And that, don't discount, even with policymakers, it's not just all facts and statistics. It's got to be personal stories as well. That human level is really important. You know, there are many case studies that we can sort of articulate and advocate on behalf of, where we hear firsthand stories of Australians who are fighting this disease. And where you know, I appreciate you sharing some of your experiences as a mother as well, with 2 children, Davis, what you've gone through. But that's really important. And we've got to put names to these people as well, so that the policymakers understand. You know, and I've got, you know, a couple of case studies like Natasha Kashito, who's 7 years old, and the pain was so bad that she had to carry an oxygen tank to school every day. Yemi Moses, who had her and her 4 siblings were all diagnosed with the disease, and one of her sisters was told that she wouldn't live past 18. Peter Leos, he was diagnosed when he was 3 years old, and it started off with pain in his joints, and as he got older, his pain in the arms and the legs and the lower back. Most of these people, younger people too, experiencing lifelong debilitating pain and affected by sickle cell anemia, and people like that who are affected in that way tend to be confined to their homes, requiring a lot of care and around-the-clock care. And many are also receiving regular blood transfusions and a lot of pharma to manage that chronic pain. And it's not really uncommon to have that many transfusions for someone with the disease. And this goes to this point about the importance of donating blood as well. Now, we're in a particularly difficult circumstance, obviously with COVID-19, and during this particular crisis, everything is tending to be focused on dealing with the pandemic. But we really need to be aware not to forget about other people who are suffering from other conditions, and we can't really have that, allow that to happen. While we need to have a focus on the pandemic, I think it's really important that groups such as yours, excuse me, continue to do your work and do it loudly, because it is really critical. We shouldn't be deterred from getting people to do their usual checkups. There are remote options like telehealth that are coming to the fore during this period, where medical professionals can attend to people over the phone or online. This issue about putting off medical tests is really a problematic one, because it can be life-threatening. And this is a general thing, not just with SCD, but certainly you see some of the alarming statistics during the pandemic, where 1 in 10 people have put off cancer screening since the start of the pandemic. So this is a really critical point that I think the advocacy plays a role in as well. I mentioned blood donations earlier playing a significant role in the treatment for many diseases, including and particularly SCD. And so the Red Cross has said that about 900 donors are cancelling appointments every day since the start of the pandemic. So that's a real issue for many people who rely on blood transfusions. So we really need to advocate around that as well. We mentioned earlier, obviously, that people from various ethnic backgrounds tend to be more affected, you know, African, Caribbean, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, and so on. There's a real gap between the people affected by this disease and the knowledge with medical providers as well, which is something that we need to, we need to close that gap really in the work that we do. And so the importance of increasing sickle cell disease awareness around the country or across the country is so important. The awareness for all healthcare providers to recognise and understand the disease, the importance of recognising discrimination and how it affects people with sickle cell. And I think the work that you're doing in all the various chapters, this is a really important part of it. And we need to encourage others to be part of that discussion as well, more broadly outside of the SCD community, people who are affected by SCD. Because if you get that recognition, if you gain that recognition, it will benefit research as well around the disease. The understanding of it, obviously, and the policy making that comes from that understanding is critical to the people whose lives are affected. I just, in conclusion, I want to send a strong message to those who suffer with the disease that, of course, we support them, but the work that we do is not, it's not just that familial support. Obviously, it goes beyond that. It is about the work that's necessary to raise awareness, a stronger awareness, to get funding for research, to have policymakers understand the disease and the like Agnes touched on, the issues that need to be addressed to improve the framework around the whole healthcare ecology, if you like, the framework around how the disease is treated and engaged within the healthcare system. And so we hope that greater awareness will keep sickle cell top of mind among many of our top researchers, for example, and healthcare providers. And so I want to thank all of you as well, because you're doing a wonderful job building that awareness and that advocacy work that you do across Australia, and also as a support network for so many people struggling with their disease. And I'm very, very proud to be part of this community, this group, this association doing this great work, and committed to doing my part as a member of federal parliament. A lot of people are quite cynical about politicians, but there are some of us who are in it for the right reason. We want to help others. Like my Kennedy referred to my parents. My dad and mum used to say, you know, everyone says Australia is the lucky country. I said, no, it's not the lucky country. We're the lucky ones to be Australian. And we've got a great opportunity. My parents fled wars in Egypt at the time in the late 60s to come for a life of peace and security and stability. That doesn't mean there wasn't racism, there wasn't discrimination, there wasn't challenges. There were certainly all of that. In the 1970s and 1980s, growing up here in Australia, there was a lot of challenges to overcome. But we were given access to education, public housing that gave us a good start in life. And the idea about giving back to the community and giving back in public service, it was such an important theme of my growing up and how I was educated by my parents to give something back, because we were so fortunate to and to have the opportunity to have a better life. And I think that we try and carry that forward, whether we're part of an advocacy group, whether we're a public servant, whether we're even working in a normal job and volunteering and working for charitable groups or whatever it might be. Whatever we do in our lives to help others is so important. And this is one area where I'm very, very happy to be part of a group that's doing such great work and giving back to others. And I particularly am pleased to be doing it within a community, obviously, of people who come from the great continent of Africa, but also regions of ethnic diversity where we have a lot of new and emerging migrant groups coming to this country who need that support more so than ever, particularly in the current circumstances. But certainly when new migrants are emerging and trying to build their lives, this kind of advocacy and this kind of support is so critical to making them feel like they're part of this nation. And that's a very big challenge as well. So what you do is fantastic. What the work that you put in is very, very important. And I'm very, very honored to be asked to be one of the ambassadors and to work with you on such an important cause. So thank you again for inviting me here today. I'm sorry if I have to come off a little bit earlier, just after 4, because I've got another of these Zooms. They never end, these Zooms. For us here in Victoria, we're just zooming out, zooming in constantly. I wish I could actually sit down with all of you and meet with you face to face. And I'm sure, hopefully, we'll be able to do that all together in the future. So again, thank you all very, very much for having me with you this afternoon.
You're most welcome. Thank you, Honorable, for being there. Yeah, so I will call upon Mwewa also to invite the next speaker. Mwewa.
Thank you, Kennedy. Yeah, just at this moment, we have an apology from Honorable Maria. She won't be able to make it. So we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the introduction of our new ambassador. So I'll hand you over to Agnes to be able to do that.
I think at this point we'll let Dr. Margaret Evans-Kalia speak before we do that. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Agnes, and sorry to jump in ahead of you, Carly. It's an honour to have you online, but also for you, Peter Carlo, because I really enjoyed what you had to say. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we all connect today, but in particular the Wurundjeri people, which is here in Melbourne. And so it's wonderful to be joining with you, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. But I want to just return to what you were saying, Peter Carlo, because I just found your story inspirational, and it's very clear to me from your commitment of joining us online today that you do really sincerely care about this initiative and that you are a true ambassador for the program and this group overall, which is an honour. So thank you very much for having that true commitment. I know Maria is the same, and I'm confident Carly is as well. So thank you all for being those true ambassadors that are here for the right reasons. Really love that. And thank you for your time on a Saturday. Fully appreciate if you need to go. I also want to congratulate the South Australian chapter on their launch, and to Agnes and the team overall for the ASCA growth and how successful this has been. This literally was a conversation. This literally was an idea that is now a national charity, and it's having impact, and it's drawing in hundreds of members, and it's engaging much more broadly around the world through your Facebook Sickle Cell talks with Agnes. I just love those. They're just amazing. I tune in every now and then and put lots of love hearts on them. But that level of advocacy, education, raising awareness, engagement is exactly what any patient advocacy group needs to do. Connect with the people living with sickle cell disease and the people who care for them and the people whose lives are connected in some way. And in many ways, we all are connected because you all contribute in different ways to this beautiful country of ours, Australia, and more broadly. We have 1,000 cases nationally and they are growing, and there are thousands more lives affected if you appreciate the ripple effects of the burden of disease on the healthcare system, the lack of research that we have in Australia with respect to this particular disease. But you know, we can connect also internationally. I've worked in the US as a researcher, and the level of sickle cell research that's done over there and in cell and gene therapy in particular is incredible. And so I would love to see this particular group engage more broadly and see some of those therapies brought to Australia. I think that's an opportunity for us, not only with respect to healthcare for those living with sickle cell, but also as a country with respect to building our economy. We need to be bringing in these new technologies into our economy as well, and our workforce and industry sector. So that for me is also really exciting. I just think that, you know, the connections between people is powerful. I've really been honoured to walk this journey alongside Agnes and all of her team, Peter and Natalie as well. They're guns, they're just going for it. I'm just absolutely impressed at how driven you are. I absolutely love your commitment. It's unwavering and it's inspirational, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. So thank you so much again, and congrats again on everything that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Gali. And, you know, you've taken us on board. And as you've said, this started as a conversation. Natalie and myself, we met you, and within a few weeks, we just didn't, you know, couldn't believe what was going to happen and what we are going to see ahead. And we saw a future in you, and we just appreciate anything and everything that you do for this organization. You're a big part of our achievements and everything we do. So at this point, but also I just wanted to touch on a big thank you to Honorable Peter Kaliu, who's you know, just raised our profile as well, and just so passionate in everything he does. And we saw that in him, myself and Natalie, and that's why we approached him, because he's somebody that we always admire, and he inspires us, and just what he does in Parliament and represents each and every one of us. And so we just want to thank you that you are coming on board, and we look forward to working with you. So at this point, I would like to just introduce to you another member of the ASCA family. We connected with Kylie. Kylie, sorry, I'll just bring up the screen. So Kylie Holmes is a radio presenter with 222 8.5 FM. Kylie should be able to correct me with that. So I connected with Kylie when I was doing the interviews for World Sickle Cell Day on June 19th. Kylie is one of the presenters that took time to call me before the actual segment, and we spoke for a few minutes. It really was so intrigued to find out what sickle cell disease was, and I could not believe that I was having an interview before the actual interview. So we spoke for a few minutes, and afterwards, you know, she put her hand up and said, you know, whatever I can do, you know, I really admire what you guys are doing and what you are fighting for. And we couldn't wait for us to bring on board, and here we are today. I'm so happy, and no, thank you that you finally joined the family. And I'll give Kylie just a few minutes to speak, and thank you so much again for joining us. Kylie.
Agnes. Yes, I'm Kylie Holmes, and it's a great honour to be an ambassador for the Sickle Cell Advocacy, but I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Look, some of the things that have led me to being an ambassador for companies like yourself is recognising some of the challenges in life that have really impacted health, and how the greater supportive community is essential in breaking through the blocks that come with health challenges. So I've recognised that the impact that different life choices we make can play on your health. For example, when we're in environments of high stress, that places stress on the body and lowers our vibrational frequency. and we create inflammation in the body, and some of our genetic weaknesses come up unknowingly. You know, if we don't understand the role stress really does play and how to create a better quality of life through healthy choices, which fortunately I've come from a very loving, healthy family in Adelaide prior to living in Sydney for 20 years. But look, how I can relate to stressful challenges with poor health was overcoming a domestic violent relationship and having to re-empower myself out of that space when I realized how much it was affecting my health at the time, and how much I really had to lean on my community to help me move forward, which in the beginning I was secretive about because of judgment or being afraid of judgment and embarrassed. But I discovered just how empowering it is to own what you're going through and to own the power of when you're in low spaces, and how this gives you a whole new perspective in a positive way to move forward with life. As I imagine people with sickle cell disease would go through challenges. It doesn't matter what your health challenge is, it's confronting, and you know, we need to remind people that support's okay. It's okay to ask for support. So this is one of the reasons why I've chosen to be an ambassador for communities like this, because I can now, after having recognised the gift of giving back after such a challenge, I'm able to now be present and share information with all the people as well who've helped me along the way. And some of the ways that I give back and I help people in the community is through doing the radio program with 2RRR 88.5 FM, and I'm able to now be a voice for their messages. Most recently in the last 2 years, has been my journey with 2RRR, and my radio show is Radioactive. It's every Wednesday night from 6 till 7 p.m. And this is how I met Agnes, through the interview with her on sickle cell disease. And when Agnes asked me to come on board, it resonated with me, as I have a relative with blood cancer, leukemia. But hearing Agnes' story of her own child having a blood disease touched me deeply because of this connection too. And you know, given that my main passion is to help connect people who reach out when they need help, I know that I have the right network to help support this process with sickle cell disease advocacy. And since accepting the role of ambassador, ironically, my cousin in South Australia, who I hadn't spoken to for a while, she informed me that her son may have sickle cell disease, and they're in the process of the testing now. And then again, this week, I was talking about sickle cell disease and what I was doing on the weekend and becoming an ambassador with sickle cell disease advocacy. Somebody spoke up to me about a friend who has sickle cell disease. So I know already the universe is aligning me with ways to support the community through creating a strong voice with reason. I also feel that, you know, being a voice for others gives other people options where they can receive support to be supported and make changes to live stronger and healthier lives, you know, in a high vibrational space. And I've been involved in events also for the past 10 years through social businesses. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into some of the events coming up, particularly the fitness one that we were chatting about, that Agnes, you're informing me about. That will be great. That really aligns with me and my values in health. But I'm going to leave you with a quote that I feel resonates strongly with this community, and it's very empowering. It's stated by Oprah Winfrey, who's I find her to be a very strong and powerful woman who's overcome many challenges. And she says, "Whatever you fear most has no power. It is your fear that has the power." So my message essentially is saying to all people facing the challenges of uncertainty with their health right now, I feel how confronting and frightening uncertainty can appear, but I encourage you to accept the generous support of communities like this one, because it is through the blessings of connection and support within the community organisations that can be the greatest gift and catalyst for your recovery. So thank you for asking me to be a part of this community and for having me this afternoon.
Thank you, Kylie.
Thank you.
Kennedy and Moya, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Agnes and Kylie. Yeah, welcome on board. And yeah, we definitely look forward to many more interactions. We're now coming to the point where we're going to listen to our specialist keynote speaker, Dr. Monica Powell. Dr. Monica Powell is a pediatric hematologist and oncologist at the Women's and Children's Hospital here in Adelaide. She completed her dual training in pediatric clinical hematology, oncology, and hematopathology, in lots of big words here, bear with me, in 2014, and started her consultancy soon after at the Women's and Children's Hospital. She's always had a keen interest in hemoglobinopathies and sickle cell disease from very early on in her training, and is currently the clinical lead of the sickle cell and hemoglobinopathy services at the Women's and Children's. Oops. Welcome, Dr. Monica Powell.
Hi, Moa. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm feeling a bit intimidated by all the amazing people that have spoken before me already. But I'd just like to start off by saying thank you to you, firstly, for inviting me to be part of the launch of the South Australian chapter of ASCA today. And of course, the thank yous will probably continue to Agnes and the rest of the ASCA group for the tireless work that has been put towards making ASCA part of almost every state in Australia now. I'm also particularly excited about the launch today because this is something Mueva and I have probably been talking about for a long time, and it's really good, so amazing to see it actually happening and coming to fruition. And I think it's nice through Agnes and through Mueva, I've met some very, very passionate people about lots of different things, and to see that passion turning towards sickle cell disease is very heartening. So like you've already heard, I am a pediatric hematologist here in Adelaide. I'm obviously not the only one. There are a few people around me, and there are adult hematologists as well. And we hopefully we'll form a network in helping not only adults but children with sickle cell disease and other hemoglobin disorders. Now, I've already realized that a lot of you already know what sickle cell anemia is and how it affects the body. However, there might be those who might not be as aware, and I thought I'd quickly run through a couple of slides. I promise to keep it brief and hopefully will not bore everyone. Even though sickle cell anemia is a genetic disorder and is probably as a mutation, a very common mutation around the world, it was really only first described in 1910. It was described as an inherited condition. It affects the red cells in the blood and their ability to carry oxygen throughout the body. The genetic mutation leads to abnormal hemoglobin being produced, hemoglobin being the molecules that carry oxygen around your body. These red cells are called sickle red cells, and they become hard and irregularly shaped. Obviously, looking down the microscope, they look like sickles or crescent moons, and that's how they got their name of sickle cell. Because they're hard, they clog the small blood vessels, and they can't get through the tiny spaces. And because they can't get through the tiny spaces, obviously they're not able to deliver oxygen to the tissues. The lack of oxygen then causes significant pain and can go on to causing damage to the various parts of the body and different body organs, including conditions like strokes. So if I go on to my next slide, it's a picture of what we see, or what I see when I look down the microscope of a blood test done on anyone who might have sickle cell disease. As you can see, there are round cells with a little target hole in the middle, so they look like target cells. But in amongst them, you'll see very sharp, elongated, oblong-shaped cells. And these are the sickle cells. And this is what essentially anyone with sickle cell disease, if we did their blood test and looked down the microscope, that it would look like. The clinical features of sickle cell disease is very varied. And I think one of the most important messages that I need to get across to the community at large is that on a day-to-day basis, people with sickle cell disease will actually not have any outward symptoms of sickle cell disease, and there'll be no way of telling that they're actually having a trouble with this condition. However, intermittently, when they do get exposed to either dehydration or fevers or infection, they will present with multiple symptoms. And there are lots of medical lingo here, so I do apologize, but the most common presentation we find is with acute pain crises. And the pain can actually be almost of anybody, but when they're children, it tends to affect their fingers and their toes predominantly. But it can pretty much affect any body part and can be very severe. If you think about blood vessels, and the blood vessels go obviously all over our body, almost any organ can be affected by sickle cell disease. In particular, there are significant lung complications that we worry about. You can present with a cough or oxygen requirement, or have actually ongoing damage to your lungs, which we need to obviously be looking after. One of the most important organs that we worry about is obviously the brain. And with a lack of oxygen supply to the brain, you can imagine that that would result in having acute strokes or strokes that happen very, very quickly, or sometimes damage that can happen over a long period of time as well. In children, you can see that as them not developing as I suppose, as expected, and having trouble at school or with learning difficulties. The other organs that can get affected in sickle cell is an organ called the spleen, which is like a filter for us. It keeps us protected from a lot of infections. But that can be something that can get very big and cause trouble from that regards. It can also go on to not work very well and make you vulnerable to having infections. Children who have got significant effects of sickle cell anemia cannot grow very well. So they might be a lot smaller than their counterparts at school. When you've got lack of oxygen supply to various bones in your body, in particular the hips and the shoulders, you can develop something called avascular necrosis. And this is where the hip joint, so it's not really, it's the leg part of the hip joint, which can lose its oxygen supply, and that can cause chronic pain and a lot of problems with the longevity of that bone. And unfortunately, when this develops, if it's not managed appropriately, can require young people to go on needing hip replacements, for instance, because that joint is now quite severely damaged. So it can be a very significant problem. And obviously, there are other parts of the body that can also be affected, including the liver and the gallbladder and other bits of the body. And of course, our job is to try and help look after the young people getting this trouble, but also hopefully be able to prevent it. Some of the management strategies that we have in place, obviously, if you present with immediate problems, usually this results in hospital admission. It will require very early and aggressive treatment with intravenous fluids, with oxygen being placed, with pain relief that can be just tablets to actually needing it through the IV drip, requiring antibiotics if there is an infection or a fever. And obviously, as Moeva has actually said, you will need transfusions, whether it's a simple transfusion or a special transfusion called an exchange transfusion. That's what happens when you come in really sick. But behind it, to try and prevent you from falling sick, there's a lot of things that go into managing young people with sickle cell disease. Most importantly, immunizations from certain infections such as pneumococcal and meningococcal, prophylactic antibiotics, which once again you've heard from Moeva's story already, chronic transfusions, so transfusions that are done every month to try and lower the amount of sickle red cells in the body so that we don't have the complications that I've already just mentioned. Some of the side effects from having lots of transfusions is actually having too much iron in your body, and you need to have that managed with medicines as well. Probably the most exciting development in the world of sickle cell has been something called hydroxycarbamide or hydroxyurea, as some of the people would have known before. And this is a medication which is taken by mouth, which has actually made a huge difference in the management of sickle cell disease. To reduce the number of painful episodes they get, the amount of transfusions required, and actually protects children from going on to having trouble like strokes. So certainly having this medicine available, not just here in Australia, but around the world, has made a huge difference in the management of sickle cell disease. But we are now entering an era of research and development medically that the children who are now growing up makes me very excited that we're probably facing a time where we could offer some really excellent therapies that would make a huge difference in their life. A lot of these things are not available to children yet because obviously we're at very early stages, but certainly things like bone marrow transplants are becoming much more readily available and a viable part of treatment options. Gene therapies that have been alluded to by many people who've already spoken so far are also becoming much more readily available, and it'd be an interesting time in a few years to come where we would be able to use gene therapy to actually almost, I wouldn't say cure is a very sacred and special word, but certainly make a huge difference and big impact in the management of sickle cell disease. I think briefly, I'd like to just say that the specific challenges we face in South Australia, I doubt are very specific to South Australia. But if I look at my career, and I think that, when I was a junior trainee and I first met Moeva, soon before that, there was probably 1 or 2 patients that I was helping in my hospital with sickle cell disease. And in that time frame to now, we have gone from 1 to 2 patients to almost 18 to 20 patients, children that I have at the Children's Hospital that we're helping. This number is a big jump, And certainly, even though it's a common mutation, the condition is still very rare here in Australia and certainly very rare in South Australia. And I think it is important for us to be able to educate not only the community, but also the families that come from very varied backgrounds with different languages and skills to understand a very complex condition. But the medical staff, you know, from general practitioners to emergency departments to nursing staff that are actually helping out how to actually manage this set of children to be able to provide them with the best of health. So I think that we have some specific challenges coming our way in Australia. I think it's to do with obviously the changing demographics in the migration pattern that we've seen, and groups like ASCA and certainly now the South Australian chapter. I'm very excited because we'll be able to pull together as a team together and be able to come up with some better ways of supporting our very varied community out there. Thank you, Mira.
Thank you very much, Dr. Monica. Really appreciate your expertise as always. I'll put a disclaimer on. Dr. Monica is a hematologist for my daughter, and she has really made a huge difference in their lives, in her bed manner and how she talks to them. So I really, really appreciate that on behalf of my family.
Thank you.
We're going to, yes, thank you very much. I know we're running behind time, so we're just going to move very quickly to our next session, which we're just going to call a panel discussion. And this really comes to the heart of why ASCA was created. Ultimately, it's that link between the medical profession and families and persons living with sickle cell. So I'll hand you over to Jackie and Kennedy as they take us through the session of meeting a couple of what we would call stakeholders in the sickle cell space. We have some patients who are living with sickle cell that are going to share a bit of their story. We're also going to hear from a parent who has children living with sickle cell. And we're also going to have the clinician's view from Dr. Monica Powell to try and help us and understand a little bit better about what's really going on, what we're facing in that particular regard. So I'll hand you over to Jackie and Kennedy for this section. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jackie, give it a go.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. It's lovely to be on the show this afternoon, and congratulations to the South Australia chapter. I know there's a lot of hard work that has gone on. So I just wanted to tell you firstly that I was diagnosed HBSS. That was way back in around about 1960, because I was born in 1957, but it was diagnosed when I was 15 months. And I'm now 62 years of age. So as they say in Australia, I've done the hard yards with this disease. I've experienced quite a lot. So I just wanted very briefly, I know we're watching the time, just to tell you about the daily challenges that the sickle cell patient can experience. And I like to put them in two categories. The one is the physical challenges, and the other is the emotional challenges. So quickly, the physical challenges would be, for me on a daily basis, is a lack of energy, one's constantly fighting fatigue and tiredness, and there are a lot of complications that come with the sickle cell, like vision deterioration. At the moment, I'm having to deal with some balance problems. So there are a lot of physical challenges which affect your daily life. It also affects the amount of participation that I can have in daily events or community events. So I've always got to be aware of how much energy I can devote to anything. And then on the emotional level, because sickle cell is very unpredictable, one has to be aware of oncoming pain crisis. Fortunately, the hydroxyurea does help a lot with controlling that, but also the emotional impact of knowing that the complications are very severe. There are kidney complications, cardiac complications. We've spoken about strokes, etc. So those are, to me, are the daily challenges that one has to face. Yeah. So something else for the next question was the impact on overall life. For me, the big challenge was employment. I think a person with sickle cell does face a lot of problems with employment, fitting into the workplace, being possibly misunderstood. A lot of times, you know, because the disease is not visible, people may tend to brand you as unambitious or unachieving. So I do find that that has placed quite a limitation on employment in my situation. I think one has to be quite careful of what you choose and how you're going to earn a living for yourself. We all do want to have a good way of life. So, and also I think in relationships, to try to surround yourself with people who understand your condition. If you are with a partner, to have a understanding partner and accepting partner. So, you know, it does affect many, many areas of one's life. And finally, what I would like to see achieved is what we are actually talking about today and what ASCA is doing so beautifully, and that is bringing awareness to other people, to health professionals on recognizing sickle cell, understanding the condition and finding ways of treating and managing it, but to create a better awareness amongst the public and your first line medical professionals, shall we say. So thank you very much, Kennedy. Is there anything else I can answer?
Yeah, you have almost like touched my thoughts. I just want to welcome my two daughters. Can you introduce yourself sitting on Mwewazi computer?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Musanda, and this is my sister Gossa, and we both have sickle cell anemia.
Can you Gossa sit properly on the computer as well? You're not being seen. All right. Thank you. Yeah, you can go on, Musanda.
We both have sickle cell anemia. I have the more anemia trait, whereas Gossa has more of the sickling trait. And the first question is, what challenges do you face in your day-to-day life as a person living with sickle cell?
Yeah, what challenges?
For me personally, my energy is a challenge in my day-to-day life, especially after school or other events. I would feel tired and fatigued and would not feel the need to sleep for a long period of time. And this would affect my sleeping pattern and my education. I would always have to get work done later than I was expecting, and it would all add unhealthy amounts of stress and anxiety in order for me to keep up with school work, social events, and other personal activities. And what impacts does sickle cell disease have on your overall life?
Maybe Ngosa can also speak. Maybe Ngosa can also say so that we can move to the next question together. What challenges does Ngosa face? Then you can come now to the next.
I face fatigueness most of the time, mostly from school, because I'm in 12 this year, and work is hard, mostly. I sometimes, as I said, face challenges as social activities and physical activities. Yeah.
Okay. So what impact does the sickle cell has on your overall life, both of you?
Personally for us, it's coming to terms with the sickle cell, that the rest of my life, unless a cure is or a solution is discovered, I will always have to miss days of school to go to hospital appointments and transfusions. For the rest of my life, I'll always be too tired to do some physical activities. And for the rest of my life, I'll have to continuously explain to others why I'm not going to some events or why I'm tired and I can't participate. And yeah, it's the same for Gossa as well.
Okay. So now that we are here in this community of ASCA, of course you understand what ASCA stands for. Do you understand that? That, yeah. What are you hoping to see, or what is that you are looking at?
For us, we're hoping ASCA SA brings awareness to Australia, and through the awareness, research is put into sickle cell disease so that better solutions and treatments and possibilities are accessible to all patients living with sickle cell.
Okay. May I extend this question to Mwewa? I know I'm not seeing her. Is she nearby there?
Sorry, we're playing tag team here.
Yeah, don't go very far, Msonda. And Ngosa. What are you expecting from ASCA? As a parent, as a mother, yeah.
No, I think I definitely am expecting, the awareness of the profiles being lifted up. I'm expecting to be empowered. I'm expecting to have, yes, that advocacy work in those somehow a bit challenging areas where we are a bit afraid to go. So I am very hopeful that we can do that. So I'm really just looking at making sure that our communities and spaces where our children and all of these people are found are much kinder, are less discriminating, and so that opportunities are presented to all. We've heard of instances where parents, because a child due to fatigue and that sort of thing, is sometimes labeled as unengaged persons or children in the school. And so that's with the teachers and all of that, not without having a much better understanding of the condition that the children are facing, would have that label going on as difficult children or whatever. And so I'm hoping with the work that we will be doing is really just to inform those spaces where the children and other adults are living in, to be much kinder and much more accommodating, with understanding, not just for sympathy, but with understanding and empowerment. So that's really pretty much what I'm looking for.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I would like to hear from Msonda and Ngosa. That now you are, Msonda, you are in which year? What year are you doing in school?
I'm in year 9.
And Ngosa?
Year 12.
Yeah, I know there's a point that you came to understand, to know that what you have is a sickle cell. Could you tell us briefly the story on how you came to know about this?
When I was born, my mom took me to hospitals all the time, and when I grew up, my age, I knew that was difficult sometimes in school and at home, and yeah.
Mother, I want to ask Mfesimson and Ngosa, your mom told you to say what you have is sickle cell, or is it the doctor, or how did you come to know?
It was the doctor that told mom, and then mom knew that I had sickle cell.
Okay. Msonda?
Just the same. I just found out through mom and the connection with the doctor. Yeah. Don't really remember because I was like.
All right, thank you very much. I think I don't have any questions for you. Maybe I would move to.
Can I just come in and thank you, the girls? Sorry, Kennedy. Sorry to barge in.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, Ngosa and Msonda, just thank you so much for being brave. Yeah, you've really done a good job, and just wanted to thank you on behalf of all of us at ASCA, and just know that we are there for you. We might not know exactly what you go through walking this journey from a caregiver's point of view, but my daughter has been there, and the other parents also on this panel. I just want to thank you, and just know that, Aunt Agnes is here. Call me anytime. I had a chance at least to meet you when I was in Adelaide, and I can't wait to see you again. So thank you so much for doing a very good job today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted us to say those words. Now that you have said them, I'll still repeat them. Thank you very much for your time. Indeed, it's so touching. You know, few of your friends would come forward and speak like that. I hope we are looking forward to make you also as ambassadors for the young, so that you can speak on forums. Yeah. You can
Good idea.
You can inspire others as well, so that they would know to say, this is what is going on. Yeah, this is what is there. So let's formally do that. Yeah, so thank you very much. I would like to move to Dr. Manika. I hope she's listening, because I can see her camera is off. Yeah, Doc, I want to ask you just two questions. I know time is not with us. I hope everyone bears with me. What challenges do you face as a clinical managing persons living with the sickle cell disease? Although I don't call it a disease, actually, we need to discuss much with you, doctor, because me, I don't call it a disease. I'm in disability, so I call it, it's a condition that people live with. So like any other people living with blindness, deafness, to me, I look at sickle cell also as just like a condition that people live with, although it's managed in a different way. Anyway, that's a discussion for another day. So my question, my question is, what challenges do you face as a clinical managing in clinical issues, managing people living with sickle cell?
Thank you very much, Kennedy. I guess we needed a way of identifying the problem. That's probably why things are labeled the way they are in the medical world. To answer your question, I think the biggest challenges I probably face are on two levels. One is, you know, I suppose the cohort of families and children that I'm trying to help come from very different backgrounds. They come from very different countries. They have very different education levels and ability to discuss things with me in English. So I think trying to educate and support families where we, as the clinicians, as the doctors, know very little about their background, where they've come from, the circumstances, that can be quite a barrier. And it takes a long time to build up that trust and to be able to help them understand, especially with the newer medications becoming more and more available, that, you know, this is a medicine that's actually going to help. But also on the medical side, I find very challenging that the resources put aside to help us with maintaining services so that we are able to help those who have got sickle cell anemia is very limited. There is very little known in the community about sickle cell anemia. There is very little education there, and certainly I think very few resources put aside for them. So, for instance, I would love to have a school nurse liaison, a nurse that goes out to the schools where the children are who are there with the sickle cell anemia and educate the teachers about the fatigue that Musanda's been talking about. Now, luckily, I think I'm quite close to having someone like that, so we've been working very hard to get someone. But it is almost in every aspect that we need someone to be able to give a comprehensive team, a team that I can say to Moyo, to Musonda, actually, I'm not the only one. I've actually got 10 people behind me willing to come together and help. So the challenges are not just at the medical front, it's at the community front, and as well as school and education with families and with GPs, emergency departments, everyone, because it's a rare condition in South Australia. It may not be in parts of the world, but it certainly is here. So that, I think, would be one of the biggest challenges right now.
Yeah, language, resources, and the awareness to the clinician. So having looked at these three main aspects that I've highlighted, what do you expect us as an association to come in to help the clinician so that we can fit into the space, so that we can be on the same page? Because we are the lay people, don't understand medicine. You are the clinicians, you understand the medicine. How can we meet each other? What do you expect from us as ASCA?
I think that ASCA as a group, it's very exciting because I see ASCA as the middle ground, as the ground that allows the link from the families and the people who do have sickle cell anemia to be able to liaise with clinicians not because of a therapeutic relationship, so not because I'm their doctor, but to be able to verbalize what their requirements are. You know, actually, we need a voice, and ASCA can be that voice, a voice between the medical people to the government bodies for funding and for research, but also to the parents and the families and people affected by sickle cell anemia to be able to help educate them, provide resources, especially in different languages, because that's one area that I think no matter how much research I do on the internet, I can't seem to ever find, you know, information in that particular language that I'm looking for. But to be able to give us the opportunity to connect with the community and be able to help with educating the community and providing some support and resources, and a place where I can tell my families to go, hey, you know, actually, if you contact ASCA, you'll meet other people who are also struggling through the same problems or have the same conditions or same stories to tell. So I look at ASCA being the middle ground, like the little meat in the sandwich, you know, helping glue together the people who are suffering from this condition and obviously the ones who are trying to help.
Thank you very much. I think as ASCA, that's what we are here for. We are there to provide advocacy. We are here to provide education, awareness, and all that kind of a thing. So what we'll just be looking forward is to, from your space, because we can knock on your door. If you don't allow us in, we cannot come in. But if we knock on your door and then you allow us and give us a seat, we'll sit and we can discuss. Because I know there's others who, you know, in this world, in this space where, because they are busy with life, they are busy with work, so they cannot give us a platform. But we hope with, like the way you are inviting us, and you will give us our time as well, because all this is about volunteerism. We'll make sure that we give in our time, and we expect also you to give us your time with your people so that we can work, especially when it comes to advocacy in terms of government funding, in terms of medication, and Agnes, they've been talking about
hydroxyurea.
Hydroxyurea.
Yeah, so you see, that's the kind of a thing that we have to make sure that we are listened to, because mostly it is sickle cell is labeled as a rare disease, of course. As a result, people have not paid much attention. Even the funding aspect of it, because it's a rare disease, a rare condition, which is meaning that it's a small thing that should not attract much. Why should we care? But meanwhile, it is affecting families, it's affecting people. So those are the issues that we want to look at this point. So
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for your time. I hope you continue with this, as you have already been there, not just by training, I can see even by passion. You have it, because
thank you, Kennedy.
Yeah, training is another thing.
Honest.
Yeah. So please keep it up. We'll knock you on your door. In South Australia, we have you. We know people who come from also other interstate to come and see you. We are very privileged to have you. I will be visiting your office. I know this COVID now is easing up, so that we can have now a round table meeting and map up our strategies with you.
Thank you very much, Kennedy.
Unless I've got any question from other members to the panelists before we can move on to something in our closing.
Just if I come in briefly, Kennedy, with the resources that Dr. Manika, and I know we've spoken about this, Dr. Manika, for resources in different languages. So we are in the process of translating the information. So I think we'll get Mweo and Kennedy to get in touch to see exactly what sort of topics you are looking for. Then we can translate that as soon as possible, because that's the issue we also have in Western Australia. So Mweo and Kennedy will get in touch, then we'll do the translation. We're in the process of doing that. So we'll be in touch soon.
That sounds amazing, Agnes. It was good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you too. Thank you.
Sure.
If I may come in, sorry, Kennedy, just very quickly. I'm very mindful of the time that we've gone over time. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge Mr. Alfred Kamara. He is one of our parents who had come on board as well. But I think just because of time, I'm struggling, you know, what to do with him sharing his story. But I just want to acknowledge your time, Alfred. Thank you very much for coming on board and meeting the ASCA family. This is just a drop, is not all the people that we're expecting to be here. So I want to thank you for your time. And he was going to share his story about his children and his journey and how that has been.
Has he left?
He's still on, so maybe he could just talk maybe for about 2 minutes or so, if that's okay with everybody. I'm very sorry we're over time.
Yeah. Mr. Alfred, please give us your story in 2-3 minutes so that we can hear it. I know we invite you more to have more of your stories and hear more how we can work together. Mr. Alfred. Mr. Kamara, are you around? I can see you are here logged in.
He's on mute. If you can unmute yourself, please. Agnes, are we able to unmute him?
I'm trying to. I can only ask him to unmute himself.
Oh.
Okay, there he is.
Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity. My name is Alfred Kamara, originally from Sierra Leone, West Africa. I have 2 children, 8 years and 5 years old. I was only given a very short notice yesterday in the afternoon by the specialist looking after my kids, who is Dr. Michael Osborne at the Rice Center, Level 5, Women's and Children's Hospital, South Australia. And I contacted Mewa yesterday at night about this program. It's only yesterday in the afternoon I got to know this, and he's short and excited, fantastic woman. And I want to thank her for that. My daughter, who is 8 years old, was diagnosed in 2016 when he was roughly about 3 years old, 3 years plus old, and we migrated from Queensland. And how did this happen? She woke up one morning, and she started complaining. She was feeling pain, and we realized that she couldn't breathe normal as she used to do. So what we did was to contact the ASCA ambulance, and we were quickly taken to the hospital. And after a couple of tests, they came to conclusion that it was viral infection, and there came in this sickle cell, and it was very, very stunning. And there came the involvement, the hematology and oncology department, and the second boy, by then, 2016, he was roughly about 6 months old, and we were shocked to know this, even though I'm aware that the wife was carrying the traits, and based on a couple of investigations or testings and everything, we are told by the specialist that it's very unlikely that the kids could have the disease or the condition without the both parents having. So I was also tested, within a couple of days, and the test was positive, and I was really, really amazed. So we are not surprised where the 2 kids have in this medical condition. So it's been a very challenging period for us. Since then we've been on appointment, doing some blood tests, imaging, just to make sure that the kids are not at risk. And until 2018, when my daughter had the most crucial crisis that led her to be admitted for 6 days at the hospital. And guess what? It was very challenging. My daughter was in complete agony. He was crying. He was yelling. He was doing this. He was telling me, "Daddy, I'm going to die. I'm going to die." So there I came to know Dr. Manika. So there was a whole team looking after my daughter. And it was so amazing, the level of support we get, which was very fantastic. And we just want to say thanks to the Australian Society, and particularly the South Australian government, for what it did to rescue and to save the life of my daughter. And when we came home, quite interesting, I was sharing this with Mama last night that my daughter burst into tears. And I said, "Mama, why are you crying?" And she said, "Daddy, I miss the nurses." It was so fantastic. And I said, if I could be grateful to this society for anything, I should be grateful to the Australian government for their medical opportunities, you know, and this is a fantastic, I always share this story, you know, with the son. There has never been, apart from this episode, there has never been anything absolutely so much worrying and concerning, because Dr. Michael Osborne and his team, they are almost always on top of the situation. So every blood test, they are always telling me, oh, Alfred, your kids are not at risk. We are happy. We are happy. The hemoglobin is good. For every periodical appointment, they always have to do blood test. So from the blood test, Dr. Michael Osborne will sit with you, explain to you as a layman what it really means, interpreting the result, which we continuously appreciate from Dr. Michael Osborne. So until April this year, I was playing, you know, tennis at the backyard with my son, Sickle, and there was always this communication with especially Dr. Michael Osborne, telephone calls and text messages, and he called me based on the result of the blood test which we did on that month, and he said to me, Alfred, is your son okay? And I said, he's okay. We're playing tennis at the backyard. And she said to me, Alfred, I'm not happy with the result of the blood result of Sickle. You know, he says his hemoglobin had fallen down to less than 62. So which means that there was an emergency needed for Sickle to have blood transfusion. I was panicking. I felt so bad, you know, and he told me, take it easy, come to the hospital the next day, you know, and within 72 hours, the transfusion was done. So these are basically some of the basic experiences and the trauma we went through, you know, and the challenges as parents is been very, very challenging, I can say, you know, having to work, having to think about your kids. The mom is not well, he's facing some depression. So sometimes I'm always on my toes, being in the office. You could be called upon to say, oh, your kid is this or your kids are that. You know, I was in the office at some point in time when I was called by the local North Primary School. Oh, Alfred, you need to come up and pick your daughter. So all those sort of things sometimes full with stress, you know, it's very challenging. But I mean, apart from those two incidents, I think we've been managing the situation, and we always rely on the medical opportunities of this country, you know. So these are some of the experiences, and I'm really, really happy that Mewa was able to get onto me last night to be part of this great ASCA, you know, association, and I would love to be part of this from now onwards.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that lovely and touching story. I know we'll meet very soon so that we can also discuss more and also see how best we can help other parents out there who are in similar situation like yours, and how you came to this so that at least everyone can be helped. Yeah. Looking at time and looking at where we are going now, I would like us to, as we come to the close, to say thank you very much for everyone who has come into this launch. I would invite Mwewa to give a vote of thanks as I also try to end the program at this point. So everyone who has come to this launch, please, you are most welcome. We're looking forward to make sure that we also meet. Yeah, me as a person or as a team, we cannot do much. But before I give him what to say, I saw Ade coming on board. He was not there at the point. Ade, quickly, 1 minute, could you please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ade. I'm from Northern Territory, and I'm happy to be here. I've been part of ASCA right from when I joined them with Victoria, before I actually moved to join the ASCA South Australia, and I'm so happy. I want to say thanks to Dr. Manika, because she's actually my daughter's doctor, because we usually visit her from NT to South Australia. So I want to say good job, and I want to appreciate Agnes for bringing this forum, you know, where we discuss so many things and we gain so many information. So thank you for bringing this. I wish everybody best of luck in our future deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to mention straight away to say we have Sophia on our team. She's our communications, social media communications officer. She's working, she can't be with us. I mentioned about Ruth, and then Mlenga also, who is committed at this point. Yeah. So please, my sincere thanks to Agnes for guiding us to settle this. Make sure that we launch up to do it today. And then all the people that have been supporting the background, yeah, Natalie and others, we really thank you, and everyone else. So Mwewa, please give your vote of thanks before I can finish it all.
Thank you very much. I won't take too much of your time. I'm very aware we've gone way over time. I just want to thank you, each and every one of you, for your time. To Agnes as well for your guidance and patience with us as we've been trying to learn the ropes and find our way around this whole thing. And yeah, I just want to just very quickly just talk about what we're trying to do here in ASCA in South Australia. And we're at the point where we're looking for volunteers to help us in social media, volunteers to help us in patient support groups. As you can see, this work is not a one-man person's role. It requires a lot of effort. So if you are out there and wishing you were able to help, please contact us and reach out to see how best we can help. Because we're trying to build some links in the research world. We're trying to build some links in the corporate sector of South Australia, I guess, in terms of funding and ambassadors and that sort of thing, but also in the day-to-day work of drafting things and going over into the schools and talking to our teachers and in our various workplaces, carrying out those information sessions. I would really love to hear from you. So I want to thank you all from the bottom of our heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like also to thank our followers from Facebook, those who are following us now, who are still on Facebook following us. Please, thank you very much. Now, Agnes, for your work, thank you very much. We can never stop saying thank you. All the members of ASCA, the volunteers, and all those who are invited, and even those that are going to watch us even after this, we close this launch on Zoom. We are still on Facebook. We all thank you. Please contact us. We're on Facebook. You can contact us to join our team so that we can work together. With these few words of closing, I thank you all. We come to the end of the launch. If there was a balloon and also cake, you're supposed to cut a cake and now start celebrating. Now we are virtual, so let's start celebrating as we go from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This was so nice, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Kylie, Mwewa, everybody, Jackie. This was, oh, actually, let me get it.